Hello students, welcome to this video on linear metric conversions. The main tool or strategy that we're going to use is the metric staircase. I'm sure you've seen some version of the metric staircase before. So let's begin by filling in the units. Let's fill in the prefixes for the metric staircase. Let's begin in the middle step, and this is the unit step. So it depends on whether we're talking about volume, distance, or mass. So let's start with distance. Okay, so in the unit box, let's begin with meter, and then let's not forget the symbol for meter, and that is just an M. Okay, so let's move down the metric staircase. Okay, so as we move down the metric staircase, the next unit that's larger than meters is decameters. DECA, and it has a prefix of DAM, okay, decameters. The next largest unit after decameters is hecto, and that prefix is HM. And then the largest unit on this particular metric staircase is one that we know very well, and that is kilometers. Okay, and then the prefix is km. Okay, so let's go back to the middle step and let's move up the metric staircase. So the next unit that's smaller than meter is called a decimeter. So DECI, and the prefix is DM, decimeter. So the next one up on the metric staircase is one that we've used a lot, is centimeter, and the prefix is CM. And then the smallest unit on the metric staircase is another one that we are very familiar with, and that is millimeter. Milli, and the prefix is MM for millimeter. Now again, if we were working in volume, these would all be deciliter, centiliter, milliliter. And if we were working in mass, we would have the grams. So this would be decagrams, hectograms, kilograms. Okay? All right, so there are three basic rules you need to remember when working with the metric staircase. All right? So let's look at rule number one, and let's look at this, this number one here. So as you move down the metric staircase, the basic operation is division. Okay, so I want you to remember that the basic operation is division. And what's happening is when we divide, numbers get smaller. Okay? Now, if we look at rule number two, there's an arrow. There's a number 2 marking this arrow. So as we move up the metric staircase, the basic operation is going to be opposite. So it's going to be multiplication. Okay? And as we multiply, we know that numbers get larger. Numbers get larger. Okay? So there's one more marking here. There's one more notation, number 3. This loop here, okay, or this hop. So each step on the metric staircase represents multiplying or dividing by a factor of 10. By a factor of 10. So what that means is for every step that we move, we are either going to multiply by 10 or we are going to divide by 10. Okay, we'll see what this rule means when we actually do some conversion examples. Okay, so let's start our examples. All right, example number 1. 12 centimeters equals how many millimeters? So let's use the metric staircase. So let's locate these units here. So let me change my color here, and I'll use red. So centimeters is going to be here, okay? And let's move to millimeters. So as we move to millimeters, we see that we are going up one step. So when you go to solve these problems, at the beginning, I want you to think of 3 steps to solve these problems, okay? So the first step is we record where we moved on the metric staircase. So we started at centimeters and then we moved to millimeters. Okay, so that's just right here, centimeters to millimeters, or we can look at the hop that I drew on the metric staircase. So what does that mean? It means that we moved up the metric staircase one step. Okay? Up the metric staircase one step. Okay, so let's look at our rules. So this applies to rule number 2. As you move up the metric staircase, the basic operation is 10. And then let's combine it with rule number 3. Each step on the metric staircase represents, in this case, multiplying by 10. Okay, so we moved up one step, therefore we only have to multiply by 10. Okay, so multiplying by 10, what does that mean? Well, that means moving the decimal place to the right one place. Okay, so we're bringing in that strategy that we talked about earlier in the year about multiplying and dividing by powers of 10. So you got to remember those rules, and we're going to review them in this kind of in this exercise. All right, so if we have to multiply by 10, what was our original number? Our original number was 12, and we have to multiply it by 10. So we simply move the decimal place one place to the right. So it was a whole number, so it was here, invisible, and then we move it one place to the right, and we fill in one decimal place, or one place value column here. So 12 times 10 is 120. So 12 centimeters equals 120 millimeters. So see these 3 steps here? These are the steps that I'd like you to follow when we're working on these problems. Okay? So let's go on to number 2. So I'm going to put in my step 1, step 2, step 3. Okay, so let me erase the previous hop so this won't get too messy. All right, so I'm going to use red pen again. So let's look at this question. We're going from meters to centimeters. So let's find those spots on the metric staircase. So meters is here, that's a unit, and we're going to centimeters. Centimeters is up here, okay? All right, so looks like this got erased here. So let me put this back here, centimeters. All right, so let's use our hops. So we're going 1, 2, okay? So let's think about the direction that we moved. So that's step 1. So in order to go from meters to centimeters, let's chart it. We went up 2 steps. So let's write up 2 steps. Okay. So let's look at rule number 2 and 3. As you move up the metric staircase, the basic operation is times, multiply. Now, how many times do we have to multiply? Well, each step on the metric staircase represents multiplying by a factor of 10. We moved up 10 steps. So we are actually going to multiply by 10 and then multiply by 10. Okay? So what does that mean? Well, when we're multiplying by factors of 10, we move the decimal place to the right. And because we multiplied by 10 2 times, we have to move the decimal place 2 places. So I'm hoping these rules come back to you now. All right, so let's take our original question, 0.6, and we're going to multiply it by 100. So we're going to move the decimal place 2 places to the right. So it was here, so I'm going to move it 1, 2. I have 2 decimal places, or sorry, 2 place value columns to fill. So this number becomes 600. Okay? So meters to centimeters, 2 steps. Okay? So let's see, 1, 2. My apologies. I moved the decimal place too far. So when we move the decimal place 2 places to the right, let's see, 1, 2. So there's only one place value column to fill. Okay, so this is not 600, this would become 60. Okay? All right, so again, we remembered our 3-step solution. Let's go on to number 3. All right, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so question 3 is asking us to go from meters to millimeters. Okay, so let me erase this. All right, so meters is here, and we're asked to go to millimeters. So 1, 2, 3 steps. Okay, this is 3 steps up. All right, so let's write down all of our proof here. So when we go from meters to millimeters, what does that mean? It means we went up. How many steps? 3 steps. Okay? So what does that mean in terms of rule 2 and 3? Well, as you move up, we know that it's going to be multiplying. And every step represents a factor of 10. So if we go up by 3 steps, that's actually times 10, times 10, times 10. So whenever we're multiplying by powers of 10, we know that we move the decimal place to the right. And because we're multiplying by 10, by 10, by 10, we know that we need to move the decimal place 3 places to the right. Okay, so this actually means 25 times 1,000. 10, 10, 10, 3 zeros equals 1,000. All right, so hopefully I'll get this one right this time. So the decimal place is here, right? For every whole number, the decimal place is invisible at the end of the number. We move the decimal 3 places. 1, 2, 3. And then we have 1, 2, 3 place value columns to fill. So what would this answer be in millimeters? So I got 25,000. Okay? So 25 meters equals 25,000 millimeters. So I'm going to leave number 4 because number 4 is very similar. I would like you to complete that on your own after this video ends. So what I want to do is I want to do a couple of the other kinds. So if you've noticed, the first 3 questions, they've all been the same strategy. They've all been moving in the same direction. So let's start number 5. So I'm going to put my 1, 2, 3 here. All right, so what does the question ask? The question asks us to go to centimeters. 520 centimeters equals how many millimeters? Equals how many meters, I apologize. So let's start at centimeters here. That's my starting point. And this time I'm going to hop down to meters. So this is a different direction. We haven't seen this yet. Okay, so let's write down what we know, what we just did. So when we move from centimeters to meters, we know that we move down the metric staircase 2 steps or 2 hops. Okay, I'm running out of room. Let me just scroll down a little bit. Okay, so what does this movement mean in terms of rules 2 and 3? Well, this time is actually rule number 1. As you move down, right, we move down the metric staircase, the basic operation is division. So we're going to divide by 10, but how many times do we divide by 10? Well, we move 2 steps. So we're going to divide by 10, and then we're going to divide by 10 again. So what does that mean? Without a calculator, we know that dividing by 10 means we move the decimal place to the left. And we're going to move the decimal place 2 places. Okay, so our original question is 520. And when we divide it by 10 and we divide it by 10, we're actually dividing it by 100. 2 zeros is 100. Okay, so 520. Now this is a whole number, so that means the decimal place was at the end of the whole number. We're going to move the decimal place 2 places to the left. So it's going to go 1, 2. So it's going to end up here. So what do you think the proper form of the answer is going to be? 520 centimeters equals 5.2 meters. Remember, we do not put in the 0. A 0 can't be the last number in a decimal answer. Okay, so we did one question where we moved in the opposite direction on the metric staircase. So let's do one more together. Okay, number 6. So I'm going to put in my 3 steps. So let's see what number 6 is asking us to do. It's asking us to go from millimeters to hectometers, a new unit here. All right. So let's map it out. So we're going to start at millimeters, which is here, and we're going to travel to hectometers, which is way down here. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hops down. Okay, so let's show our work. So when we go from millimeters to hectometers, we moved 5 steps down. We moved down the staircase 5 steps. All right, so what does that mean in terms of calculations? Well, when we move down the metric staircase, the basic operation is division. So for every step that we moved, we have to divide by 10. So we're going to divide by 10, divide by 10, divide by 10, divide by 10, and divide by 10. So when we're working without a calculator, what does that mean? Well, when we divide by powers of 10, we move the decimal place to the left. And because we divided by 10 5 times, we move the decimal place 5 places to the left. Okay, so this is 1,250 divided by, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tens. So this number is actually going to have 5 zeros behind it. So this is going to be 1,250 divided by 100,000. Okay, so let's show our work moving the decimal places. So the decimal place was here, and we need to move it 5 places to the left. So let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now there's a missing place value here, and then there's something that has to be in this place value column here. So can you record the answer that you think this will be? All right, so hopefully you put 0.0125. This 0 at the end gets eliminated because we can't have a 0 as the last digit in a decimal answer. So 1,250 millimeters equals 0.0125 hectometers. And again, I showed my 3 steps. I showed all of my work. So what I'd like you to do is, to end this lesson, I'd like you to complete question 4, question 7, and question 8, showing all of your work, your 3 steps here, how I've modeled it for these 5 examples. Okay, again, follow these 3 rules, 1, 2, and 3, and make sure that you're showing the hops up here on your metric staircase. Okay, so please show Mr. Ueda once you finish this lesson. Thanks for watching. Bye.